Hey folks, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to Portable Gaming, and welcome back to ETS2. So we are in Bergen, Norway, where we left off. And I'll tell you, I'm sort of on the fence right now. I love this little truck. I love this 164 that we built, and we drove it all around Iceland. We drove it north from Plymouth all the way up the UK, and then up into Iceland. We drove it around Iceland for a little bit longer than we planned to. And I'll show you the other trucks that we have. Show you what we got here. I'm limiting myself to 5 trucks in this career. So we've got an MAN. And this is not the Madster MAN, this is just a base game MAN. But it does have sleeper. We've got the 4 Series that we're in. We've got a DAF. Also with a sleeper. Base game, but it's got the DAF DLC. It's got some goodies on it. And then we've got this Mercedes-Benz Antos. I really like this truck. It's a good looking truck, but it's more or less a day cab. It's not something that I would want to drive across Scandinavia and up almost all the way into Russia. And then we've got the RJL Scania with a sleeper, with a lift axle, bigger, something that I would drive across Europe, across Scandinavia. So the thing is, we're way up north now. We're up in Norway. And all of our trucks, are down in Reims. So we can do a couple things. We can reset to Reims. I don't really want to though. There's something about, I want to continue the journey. So we can buy a garage in Bergen, fast travel to Reims, pick up a truck, and then fast travel back to Bergen and pick up where we left off. The thing is, all of our slots are full right now. And the MAN that I want to drive is the Madster MAN, which is in my mod folder, but I don't own one right now. I wasn't able to get one early on because I didn't have enough money when I first started my profile, so I just got the base game MAN. So then we would get in the MAN and trade it and we would build the Madster MAN, and then we would trade our MAN and then fast travel back to Bergen, or however it worked out, and then begin our journey. And I want to do the 8x4. And I think that's a little bit more suited for a truck that we would drive across Scandinavia and up into Russia. And the thing is, the 4 Series that we're in now, I think is appropriate for these little day trips, kind of moving around city to city. And even Iceland, even though it's desolate, these are still what I think of as day trips. So if we were in the 4 Series, we'd be staying in hotels. For this kind of trip, and particularly when we get into this area up here, I feel like that's more something that you want a sleeper for, and that you want an 8x4 for. So for today, we're just going to drive down to Stavanger. We're going to drive down there. I think that's the only job that's available. But in the comments, please let me know what you think we should do when we get to Stavanger. We may buy a garage and do the swap. And the other thing we can do is, while we're here, we'll save the interest. Let's just pay off our loan. There you go. And that leaves us with $100,000 and the ability to borrow $400,000. So if we do decide we want to do some things as far as swapping out trucks or trading in trucks, we can do that either via loan or just via the cash that we earn as we're traveling. Right. So I believe the only job that's going anywhere near where we want to go are these mobile phones, 17 tons, right down the coast. This trip won't take long at all, 15 or 20 minutes. So here we go. We get out of here. How do we get out of here? It's got to be this way. So it is 7:30 in the morning where I am right now. I got up early and made an FS17 video, made a farm video. Woke up about 4:30, started recording right about 5. And in the farm video, I did say I'm not sleeping well lately. I'm waking up a little bit earlier than I want to. We are, as you can see, we're running the Grimes Frosty mod with the snow and ice on the pavement. So it's a little, I mean, you can clearly see the wheel ruts and where we are meant to be. But it can be a little tricky to get yourself oriented. We're also running the Grimes physics adjustment for the snow. So the snowy roads have a little bit less grip than dry pavement. This is similar to what we would get in Iceland via ProMods, but we can, as long as we leave this mod installed, we can have this kind of weather all the way to Russia. And I think that's going to be what we do. I think we can get there in probably 4 trips, which will be 3 or 4 videos. At which point, well, we'll see. Because we're going south before we go northeast. We're going south before we go northeast, and we still have to decide what we want to do about our truck. I do like this truck. I love the 4 Series. I love just about everything about it. The only thing I don't like, as I said in the intro, is it's a day cab. Yeah, see, these wheel ruts throw me a little bit. I thought we needed to be further to the right. Almost drove into the side of the tunnel. So I love this little 4 Series, but I don't know, if I were a truck driver, I don't know if this is the kind of truck that I would drive from the North Sea to the Baltic Sea. It seems like a pretty small truck. It's a 4x2 with no sleeper. And even staying in hotels, and with the weather, I feel like I would want a minimum of a 3rd axle, if not a 4th. And a sleeper, and possibly a bigger motor. So we'll see. The great thing about this game, and really the thing that I like about all simulation gaming, particularly when you play realistic as I do, is you make up problems. You make up problems and then you try to solve them. So we made up the idea of going northeast across Scandinavia. We just decided to do that. But now, having decided to do that, we have to figure out how to do that. And that is the great thing about simulation gaming for me, is it is problem solving rather than just remembering combos and sniping and that sort of thing. I like FPS games, I like combat games, but I don't like them nearly as much as I like simulation gaming. I could do this, well, I could do this all day. Don't tell my girl. I think she's beginning to suspect, though, because when you're making content for a YouTube channel and it's all simulation gaming, right? I think the jig is up. So this is all ProMods, and I believe, you know, it's tricky to keep track of all these things, and I don't want to be a total fanboy, but it's my understanding that this stuff came out, this North Bergen rebuild was a part of ProMods 2.25, and as I mentioned in the last video, 2.25 did not have reverse everything I just said. We were up north of Bergen, now we're coming down into the town proper. So where we just came from is the area that was loading scenery. Don't crash. We good? Are we cool, Vincent? All right, we're cool. So I'm going to take a spin through town here just to get these 2 discoverables. So that area up north of Bergen where we just came from, was part of the Bergen rebuild in ProMods 2.25. And 2.25, as I said last episode, did not include any special transport routes, even though it was compatible with ETS2 1.30, which was the patch that allowed the use of the special transport DLC. But then ProMods 2.26, which we are running today, did bring in 4 routes. And ProMods is always, ProMods is always upgrading and changing things, constantly improving. And they're pretty good about feedback. I've spent some time on the forum, and they seem to be a pretty responsive crew. Sorry, got to break the immersion here, but couldn't see around that building. They're a pretty responsive crew, good customer support, and amazing to me that you get all that. I don't know how they make money. I don't know if they're even trying to, but they're a nice group of folks, and they make an amazing product. All right. Now, is it just me, or does it seem like the AI is getting better? It's not me. I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest complaints about ETS2 is the AI. And it, not always. A few episodes ago, I watched a cop. I don't know what they were doing, but I watched a cop for a few minutes just do the craziest things. And it seems like that's more and more a novelty, whereas a couple patches ago it seemed like that sort of thing happened more. And also it seems like there's less ramming. It does still happen. It happens at traffic circles. It happens at some of those intersections out in the country where you've got one road sort of teeing into another one, and as you're passing, as you're sort of the top of the T, as you're passing that road that's entering from the left or the right, perpendicular, a car will pull up, not really any clearance at all, and they'll either pull out in front of you or just drive into the side of your truck. And I've noticed that there are times when you don't take any damage, but, sorry, reverse that. You don't get a fine, but you do take damage. And that's frustrating. And I don't know why it is. It's, I'm always unpacking things. I love to think about things. And something that I do think about is none of this is real. I'm not driving a truck in Norway right now. I'm sitting in front of a monitor. I'm sitting in front of an appliance, really, just an electronic device. So how could I possibly have an emotional response to something like the AI glitching out and damaging a fake truck? How could I possibly, and really getting angry, that is an emotional response. Stavanger, 15 grand, it's not bad. How could I possibly have an emotional response to that? I find that fascinating. And I guess it's similar to, you watch a movie and there's characters you like, there's characters you don't like. Oh, that guy makes me so mad. Oh, I really like her. However it works out. And on some level we recognize that's just an actor. It's not real. I don't know if I'm too far left or too far right. Let's try a little bit to this side. That's just an actor. And yet you still, right? You still connect with them. There it is. Right. Same thing happens when you read a book. Okay, a little further than I thought. Man, the scale the scale on the map, I have to say, is not always ideal. Now, 7 hours, and we don't have to sleep for 8 hours, so it's going to be a little tight, and it's 12 hours to get the job delivered, so we're not going to be able to sleep. We need to haul the proverbial ass, as they say. And we're going to be going, I think, through some mountains, not terrible, right? Like right there. I don't think that guy really had clearance, but then the car behind him did stop, so good on him. Okay, we got to haul ass. We can't dilly-dally. We have to be right at or above the speed limit this whole trip, and I don't know how the estimated time of arrival is calculated. I don't know if they just take the maximum speed limit for your entire route and then the total mileage of the trip divided by the maximum speed limit, and that spits out a number, or if they include things like stopping, or if they use your average speed, like how fast you normally drive. I have no idea how they calculate it. But then when you throw Grimes in on top of that, I don't know if the Frosty mod and the physics and the other things that we've done to make this trip a little more difficult, I don't know if the game can calculate any of that. So the speed limit's 80, we may only be able to go 70, right? I don't know if it's taking that into consideration. And we're not slipping, but I can feel the truck is, It's not gripping quite the way I want it to. Well, I take that back. I activated Frosty, so clearly I do want it to be a little slippery. So I guess booty trap, you see what I'm getting at. Right. Okay. Get going. And then when we get down the coast, we will decide what we want to do as far as buying another garage, fast travel, trading in a truck, buying a new truck. The main thing is, and this is always my thing, never taking damage. I don't know how long I can keep the streak going. I feel like it's been a minute since I've had any damage at all. I've had damage to the truck, but not the cargo. And that's the important one. And you know, like I said last time, you know who that YouTube virtual truck driver is. Everybody knows. That's my role model right there. That's who I want to emulate. That cat is straight up smooth. And I'm looking to be that smooth as well. Right. Speeding already. Speeding on snow and ice. I can feel it. It's a little bit hard to see. It's a little bit hard to slow down and stop. Oh. Yeah, this is like maximum focus. So I've got two other series that I'm doing right now. One is Farming Simulator 2017, and the other is Let's Play of Cattle and Crops Early Access. I'm thinking of bringing in a fourth title, and I think it's going to be Assetto Corsa. I think that makes sense, because the other option would be American Truck Simulator. And I may do some one-off videos of American Truck Simulator, but I have to say I really never got there with ATS. And it seems weird to say that, because it's this, oh dear. Yeah. Oh, I really need to slow down and be super careful at traffic circles. I mean, I take damage at traffic circles in dry weather, and this is definitely not dry. Okay. So ATS, American Truck Simulator is European Truck Simulator moved to the United States, Western United States. And you would think, same thing, right? But for me, there are some key differences. And I'm not putting the game down when I say this. I'm just making the observations. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm not calling it out, just making the observation. So the first thing is, the base game only came with 2 trucks, I think. It came with the Peterbilt 579 and the Kenworth it's not the T90, I can't remember, but they were both contemporary streamliners. And then they added later the Peterbilt 579, I'm sorry, the Peterbilt 389 and the Kenworth W900, the Smokey and the Bandit truck. And so now there's a total of 4 models in the base game. Four truck models that you can buy, 2 Kenworth, 2 Peterbilt. I think that's really held ATS back. I think the fact that so much of the market for ETS2, people in Europe, and then I see a lot of people in like Turkey and Iran and further east, India. People in India seem to love European Truck Simulator, but they seem to like the European trucks. And being an American, I just assume, doesn't everybody love American trucks? Doesn't everybody love American everything? And I realize, not always. So maybe a miscalculation by SCS as to how much people would love the idea of driving an American truck, a big American truck. But then for me, where they screwed up was that the game did not launch with those big 1970s and 1980s, what I think of as big American classic trucks like the Peterbilt 389. It didn't launch with those. It launched with, to me, sort of bland, contemporary, streamlined, not very exciting trucks, and only 2 of them. So I think that's one problem, is the equipment. And then the terrain, it's my belief that SCS chose terrain in the United States that was as different from Europe as possible. I think they did that. That's what I would do, because if you were to model, Boston, Massachusetts down the coast to Richmond, Virginia, you would just see a lot of freeways with towns around them, cities around them, and easy. And it's not that it looks like Europe, but I mean, there are places in the United States that look just like Europe. Wisconsin looks just like Czechoslovakia. I guess, well, it's not Czechoslovakia anymore. Czech Republic, that region. Wisconsin looks like Poland. Minnesota looks like Poland, or Poland looks like Minnesota. It just looks the same. When you get into cities, you can see the street signs are different, the road signs are different, things are laid out a little differently. Maybe some architecture is a little different. But for the most part, there are places in the United States that look a lot like Europe and vice versa. I think all cities, almost anywhere you are in the world, sort of take on the same basic, not look and feel, but sort of functionality, as far as, this goes here, this is going to be down by the river, we want these out in the suburbs and that sort of thing. So had SCS modeled that northeast corridor from Boston to Richmond, I don't see anything uniquely American about that versus the American Southwest, which is very unique. But it's pretty bland out there. There's really not a lot going on. It's not, I mean, I used to live there. I lived in Los Angeles. I spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. And then I lived in Mammoth, and then I lived on Lake Tahoe. So I spent a lot of time up and down, 395, back and forth from Mammoth to LA, and that's the region that the game models. And that really is what it looks like. It's pretty desolate, pretty bleak. There's not a lot to see. I think that's their second, not mistake, but I think that's the second factor. So you put those two things together, and I think the game didn't sell well and wasn't super popular. And because it wasn't super popular and not a lot of people were playing it, then people didn't make a lot of mods for it. And because people didn't make mods for it, and really mods make these games, everybody knows it. Mods make these games. So because there are no mods for it, then less people are drawn to it, and then you get into kind of a cycle where the less people play it, the less it's worth it to make mods for it, and the less people make mods for it, then the less people play it, and they're just sort of in a loop. A loop in a bad way. So what that means for me is I don't think there's a lot of content available to add to the game. And the content that is in the game, I have to say, doesn't really do it for me. So I can do an ATS. I don't think I would do series. I think I would do a couple test videos. I can do ATS videos, but we'll start with one-offs. And I know I've heard people on other streams ask for it. I've heard people on other channels say they want ATS. Nobody's asked for it on mine yet. I would do an ATS video just to see what kind of response it got. It's different, and everybody likes something different. So I'll give it a try. I think I have 4 trucks. Yeah, I've got 4 trucks in ATS. Because there really are only 4 to get, and even the ones that you do get, you can't do a whole lot with them. The amount of goodies for the trucks is compared to not even ETS2 modded, but just compared to ETS2 base game, the amount of upgrades available for the trucks is really limited. And I think all of that put together has sort of held the game back. It's a solid game. I think the gameplay, the graphics, the physics, I think everything is just as good as ETS2, which really it is ETS2. It's just got different trucks and different locations, but I don't think it's radically different as far as the functionality of the game. Certainly they wouldn't have it operating on a different physics engine or rendering engine. Sorry, buddy. So yeah, that's what's going on there. And then, like I said, Assetto Corsa, I think it's going to be Assetto Corsa. Now, I don't know what people want to see for Assetto Corsa. So if you want to leave that in the comments as well, please do. I don't know what people would want to see. Whether it would be career mode. I mean, if it was career mode, being OCD, if I went career mode, I would need to start at the very beginning, which I believe is the Fiat Abarth. And that's not, I mean, who wants to see that? And your very, very earliest license, you don't even race anybody. You just drive around, try to meet a minimum score to qualify you for your next event. And if you complete all the events, then you get a license. But I don't think you're even, at every event, I don't think you're even racing against somebody. I think very often you're just driving. Yeah, but do your high beams work? Main beams, high beams? And of course, lift axle. I'm going to struggle with this until I have an indicator light, which will be, I believe that, I know that the Scania does. I know the Mercedes Antos, I'm just talking about trucks that I own. The Scania does, the Streamline. The Antos does not. The DAF does? The MAN does, but that's the base game MAN. If I get the Madster MAN, I know that one does not. And I think one of them doesn't have an indicator light on the instrument panel, but it does have, you can actually see the switch rock and a light come on. Look at this. Can you see this road in the mini-map? That's something, man. And half of that is tunnel, I think. Well, it's got to be because it crosses over itself. Well, no, I take that back. It doesn't have to be. It could be a bridge. I've got my main beams are mapped to my D-pad on the left side of my gamepad, and of course I'm using my left thumb to steer with, so coming through that turn I couldn't take my thumb off the thumbstick to turn the high beams off without going into the wall, so that poor guy had to ride for a few hundred yards with my high beams right in his rearview mirror. It's Scandinavia. He's probably pretty laid back about it. He gets it. Right. So we're going to take a right up here, and we're making progress. I don't know. I know Grimes, Frosty. I could just call it Frosty Mod like everybody else does, but I believe in correct attribution, so I call it Grimes Frosty Mod. But I believe he altered the day length of when the sun rises, and I think there's more mist and fog, so it stays not dark, but I mean, and the visibility is significantly reduced. And one of the reasons that I didn't want to turn Frosty on when we were in Iceland is I believe there are some pretty significant mods to day length just in the ProMods, because Iceland is all a ProMods area. So I didn't want to have those two competing with each other and end up with a mod conflict. And I know there is a physics tweak. There are slippery, snowy areas on the roads in Iceland, and I didn't know if Frosty would overwrite that, or if they would stack and the road would be undrivable, or if it would just cause a conflict and a crash. So I waited till we were coming back, and then did a little thing so that when we got off the ferry in Bergen, we came off the ferry to the Frosty mod. I figure it's still February. It's going to be warming up soon. I live in the south in the United States, so it's going to be warming up. It gets warm early in the season here, and it gets not terribly hot. I have lived in the desert, like the actual desert, and I know hot. I liked it at the time. I don't know that I would ever want to go back to the desert. I don't know if I would ever want to be that hot again. And I was there for several years. So I was proper hot. So it doesn't get that hot here. And of course, there, the desert, very dry. It's a dry heat, man. And here in the south, it's very humid. So even though it might be, as far as temperature, it might be 20 degrees cooler here in the south on a hot day than it is on a hot day in the desert, the humidity can be oppressive, as they say. I did bump the sound up just a little bit. I have been noticing that in my videos the sound of the truck can be a little bit further in the background that I would like it to be. I also want to avoid having the truck so loud that you can't hear me talking. And also, worst case scenario would be having both of them loud and it sounds like just a jumbled mess, or it sounds like I'm yelling, although I'm doing this with headset on. I can barely hear myself. I'm learning to moderate the volume of my voice without being able to hear myself. With the headphones on, I really can't. I tried to monitor. There is a monitor feature in OBS. Now, I saw a delay in there, and I believe the delay is so you can take out the regular delay you get when you're recording with headphones anywhere, in a recording studio or wherever, where there's a slight delay, and you can hear yourself half a second later, and then you talk like a crazy person. I think that delay feature may be to eliminate that. So I've sort of experimented with the idea of using my headset as both a monitor for desktop audio, which in this case is only the sound of ETS2, but then mixing in myself, monitoring the level of my own voice, and then I'd be monitoring the mix in real time. The only way that would work is if that delay feature is what I think it is, then I would need to dial it precisely so that there's no discernible delay and I'm hearing myself in real time and not talking like a goofball. But that would allow me to mix the audio that turn right there, coming the other way, coming up from the south, that turn has got me so many times. It's kind of a decreasing radius, weirdness. It's tricky. So yeah, I want you to be able to hear the truck. I want you to be able to hear me, and I don't want us to be competing over one another. So I'll take a listen on the review before I post, and continue adjusting. Sun does seem to be coming up. Well, sun is definitely coming up, and I'm thinking it's going to get light enough during the day. Oh, that's something else. I haven't planned it this way at all, but a lot of our trips have been at night. Now, here's the thing about, I've been doing this YouTube thing a week now, 10 days. But I've been watching sim gamers on YouTube for a long time. And here's what I notice. I can find any type of video that I'm into. And I like ultra realistic gaming. I like long play videos. I prefer an hour to 15 or 20 minutes. And I like driving at night. In real life, I like driving at night. And in ETS2, I like driving at night. I sort of like farming, maybe not in the dead of night, not at 2 a.m., but I sort of like farming, like say during harvest season. And we just stay in the fields. I think. No, I thought that turned green just as we crossed through it, but we just got really, really lucky. Okay. During harvest season, when you start bringing in a harvest, and particularly with Seasons mod, if you can see it's going to rain the next day, you just need to stay and keep harvesting well after it gets dark. Turn the work lights on and just keep harvesting. So I like that. I like getting up very early in real life, but also in farm sim too, and working when it's dark and working as the sun comes up. But I worry about the quality of the video because it's dark. Now, if you're into that, here's an example. The farm sim video that I posted yesterday, for the first 10 minutes, 12 minutes, it's almost completely black. And, I'm learning this process, and Timothy Leary, never heard of Timothy Leary? Timothy Leary has this great quote. I will paraphrase it because I don't have it at my fingertips, but He says if you want to grow as a person, if you want to grow your mind, essentially you need to accept that you could be wrong about everything you think and think you know. He says you need to let yourself get to a place of chaotic, open-minded vulnerability. And I love that. And I think that's valid. I think it's valid for anybody, but I know it's valid for me. You need to be willing to be wrong. So when my girl and I were talking about this, I told her I know the type of video that I prefer, but if the channel starts to move forward and I'm getting comments that say, hey, I like your videos, too bad they're all at night, I can't see anything, I don't watch videos where people do things at night, I just don't like them. If I get enough of those, I don't think it's compromising myself to make videos that people want to see. Right? Now, if I'm making truck sim videos and farm sim videos, and some of them include me doing things at night, and people say, hey man, last night, it's hard to see. That's one thing. If I'm making farm sim and truck sim videos, and I get a comment that says, hey man, do a bunch of Mario Kart. That's completely different. And that's not what I want to do. That's not how I get down. So you see what I'm getting at. I think there are some things that are listening to your audience and tailoring the product to them. And I think there are other things that are just sort of going in a completely different direction. So I'm more than willing to tailor the videos to what people want to see, as long as I don't feel like I'm compromising myself. And I have no problem doing more day trips. I haven't planned for these to be night trips. Like right now, what's Frosty doing? What does Frosty want me to do? I'm panicking. Doesn't matter, I'm getting off here. Oh, we're starting to fall asleep. Yeah. Well, we've only got a minute and a half to go. So I'm more than happy to listen, and if folks say the night videos just don't work, they don't do it for me, I'm happy to not do them. Oh, game. Right. Well, I'm not sure why Frosty has us in the middle of the road. I don't see any traffic right now. There's some. Yeah, so he's there, so I'm going to go here. Unless that's the plan, where he has his right tires in the left rut and I have my left tires in the right rut. Or it just goes back to what it's supposed to be. Totally slipping right there. Okay, the van stopped for me. Woo! Game crash. Okay, I'm going to get back to a save point, and I'll come back and finish up for you. Hey folks, we're back. We are, I guess, at the exit just before we had our game crash a minute ago. Apparently it started snowing. So what happened there is, it could be one of any number of things. I know I've got a hot trailer mod that causes some crashes, even in the market. The job market, when you go to look for a job, I think if you come across that hot trailer, if it tries to render it, it will crash the game. I don't know if it does the same thing in traffic. If it tries to render that trailer in traffic, if it crashes. I know sometimes when I'm loading scenery, the game will crash, and I know sometimes when the game is trying to save and load scenery at the same time, sometimes it'll crash. So, before we get to this traffic circle down here, which is where we crashed the last time, game crash, not truck crash, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of ETS2. If we do crash here, I will get everything sorted out off screen, and I will see you the next time in Stavanger, and we will try to head up to the northeast. Thanks, folks. Take care. But what's funny is I'm still here. So if it doesn't crash, then we're just going to drive to our destination like no big deal. All right? So we'll just do that, and then I'll have to say goodbye again. It's like I've gotten a big fight with you. That's it, I'm leaving, and I stomp out of your house, and then a minute later I come back like, hey man, I forgot my keys. Can I get my keys? And my Tupperware? All right. Hey, how you like that mod life? How do you like that ETS2 mod life? Right. Boy, the timing could not be better because we are just about to fall asleep. We get a couple finds first, and then the screen goes dark and you just wreck your truck. Good times. All right. I have to say, though, I do love Frosty mod. Not all the time. Time and a place. But right now, I think it's because it's the end of winter, getting towards summer. And I guess I'm enjoying the end of winter. Although it's never really wintry where I am. I used to live in Mammoth Lakes, California. We get 30 to 60 feet of snow per year. Say that a couple times slowly. 30 to 60 feet of snow per season. Same with Tahoe. A little bit less in Tahoe. Not quite as high up. All right. Is it this one? It's the next one. Next one. Okay. Lift axle. I got to take a look outside. Okay, lift axle is up. Now the other thing, I believe I can fly. No, not that, something else. I believe that Frosty mod does not overwrite the delivery icon, the delivery sort of highlight. It shows you where to back the trailer in. I don't think it will be buried under white snow. I hope not. No, it's not. Okay. So what do we got here? That's pretty straightforward, and this is kind of a short trailer. So let's see if we can do this all in cab. Are you not entertained? Oh. Entertained watching me drive into a wall. Right. Okay, there's my first find. Right. See how we did. Beautiful. And I think we'll get our promotion and move to level 21 next episode. Okay, we made it. I'm not going to check out the job market right now because we had one crash and that's enough. Folks, thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for coming to check out the Portable Gamer. Thanks for joining us for ETS2. We'll see you next time. Take care.